A lot of people have voiced Bulma, even just in English, but perhaps none are more celebrated than Tiffany Vollmer, who is with us today after a recent battle with coronavirus. She is, much like Bulma from the future, a survivor. Please welcome Tiffany Vollmer. How are you, my love? It's good to talk to you.
Oh, it's so good to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Hi to everybody out there. I'm glad to still be around to be able to chat with you.
Right. I mean, the truth is, about a month ago, month and a half ago, we had found out that you got sick, legitimately sick with this COVID-19 thing. And it was a bit of a scare because we lost Hiromi Sudu, the Japanese Bulma, and people were like, no, not another one, not another one. And we were able to put the word out, and now you are feeling better. You have overcome the virus, right? What happened here?
I have. Just one night on a Friday, I just wasn't feeling great. And I usually have a lot of energy. And for some reason, I felt like it was first term pregnancy exhausted. Like I could not keep my eyes open. I was sleeping like 17 hours a day. And knowing that COVID was out there, there had been a sandstorm from like the Sahara that reached the United States that weekend. And I'd been downtown, and like downtown Dallas, the entire sky looked like we were on Mars or something. It was crazy. Beautiful sunsets, but allergies were going. So I just thought, maybe it's just allergies and it's kind of got me kind of exhausted. I didn't know what to think. And then I was like, you know what, when I woke up the next day and I was just not feeling right, it's hard to explain, but it's almost like the coronavirus, like I could feel it when it started, and when it left, I could feel it leave my body like a demon just disappearing. Wow. But I finally was like, I need to go get tested. I'd quarantined myself already. I'd kind of quarantined myself and isolated myself from my family until I could get a test. And I was, there's a lot of research that goes into testing even. Like nobody really knew what that was about. There's a free American Airlines Center, and you can sit there for, a day or, several hours, 13 hours. Some people waited. And if you don't feel well and there's not a bathroom to go to or one, life's pleasantries or, it's hard
Right.
to imagine sitting there when you don't feel good, waiting for that many hours. So I finally went to a clinic up the street from my house and got in and got the test. And then I still didn't get the test for like 4 days after that. So the entire time, you feel like a ticking time bomb. And a couple of weeks earlier, a friend of mine had died of COVID. Actually, it was about a month before. And his memorial service was that week. And I missed the memorial service because I hadn't gotten my test results back. And that was really heartbreaking. It was just very heartbreaking. It was a social distancing outdoor memorial, but I missed that. And then finally I was diagnosed, and I didn't really have the respiratory thing that everybody seems to have that puts people in the hospital and gets them intubated, not incubated. Anyway, that's COVID brain, by the way. If you hear me be at a loss for words or stutter a little bit, it is because of COVID. And the things that affected me were stomach issues. And then I had earaches, which was just random. And then headaches, like blinding headaches to where I just could not see. And a COVID headache is a very specific placement and a type of headache. I can tell the difference between any other headache and a COVID headache. And then just sleeping a lot. And then I ran a fever for 35 days.
Yeah, I was going to say you had it for like a month, I remember.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was a solid, was it like, 35 days. So that's a little bit over a month.
Right.
And I did like 2 rounds of steroids. I had a huge regime of supplements. I went to a chiropractor. My acupuncturist actually has Chinese herbs, and he made me several different formulas for different ailments and different points in my illness.
Did those help?
Oh, I think so. I think they actually kind of kept I think that really kept the respiratory issues away. I really do. I commend my doctor, my Chinese doctor, because he was just on it. And he was like, I don't know if this works. We just got to, he's like, I've had success with other patients, and it's not anything. It's not like hydroxychloroquine where everybody's trying to shove that down people's throats, including the president, when in all actuality, I'm not a candidate for that because I have heart issues in my family, and it does cause cardiovascular toxicity. I mean, one of the things about having COVID, and especially in the situation I'm in, everybody had a silver bullet, surefire cure for me. And at some point, I just, I was like, do people think I want to be sick? Because I really would not like to be away from my family for 35 days, even on my birthday. I spent my birthday in isolation this year. And, I think that I tried the best I could, like with a supplement regime, vitamin C and zinc and elderberry syrup and D3 and K and A and, all the B vitamins. Like, I was dosing up every day on supplements, chloroxygen, selenium, elderberry syrup, you name it. Like, I spent most of my day taking supplements.
Wow. So it was like a cocktail every day so you were basically doing whatever you could to fight this thing. Eastern medicine, Western, all of it, right?
I was fighting. I was definitely fighting. I went through 2 rounds of steroids. They put me on antibiotics just to make sure that if there was anything else in there, that it would not add to what was already going on. There are a lot of people get pneumonia, or they get some other thing that is not sepsis, that is not even related to COVID that we know of, or how could that be? But because of that, it makes the COVID worse, or vice versa. I don't know how it works. I'm not a doctor, but
right.
My dad is Dr. Briefs.
Right.
See what I did there? I'm just kidding.
Well, he is.
It's true.
The richest man in the world, actually.
Yeah, I wish that that transferred over into this life. That would have been so cool.
But then that means you would have been married to a homicidal, psychotic maniac from space who can turn to a giant monkey. So, I mean, would that have been worth it? Maybe. I mean, I guess you wound up being okay at the end of the day, right?
I mean, I love that I get to play an anime princess, and nobody ever really thinks of Bulma as a princess, but she is married to the Prince of all Saiyans, right?
Right.
And if I wasn't going to grow up to be a Disney princess, at least I get to be an anime princess.
I mean, you never know. Look, someday, Disney, it probably ain't going to happen, but if Disney ever buys Toei, then technically that means that Bulma would end up being a Disney princess. But hopefully that will never happen because they have too much power as it is. But the truth is, yeah, you would be a princess for sure. And I want to ask you about the character of Bulma too, because, okay, let's just clarify for everybody. You voiced Bulma more than anybody in the North American world in English. You did Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, GT, the original movies, and like a decade of video games. But I want to go back to before you voiced Bulma. But first, I wanted to ask you one last thing about the COVID. When did you start feeling better? Like, how was that recovery? Like, did you just all of a sudden the headache started going away? Is that what it was?
No, I still get them every once in a while. They're like shadow or like ghost symptoms is what they call it, I think. I went to go try to donate plasma and got turned away twice. And then I was running around one day, and the next day I was getting all of these crazy sensations, like millions of little tiny Charlie horses going on throughout my legs, and my right leg swelled up really bad. And I ended up going to the emergency room because my best friend had passed away from a blood clot. And then 2 days later, a filmmaker, award-winning producer that I worked with, passed away from a blood clot. And I just was like, okay, I can't fuck around. I got to go make sure this isn't a blood clot. And I went to the ER, and the nurse that was getting me in had said that he was glad that I was there and that I wasn't overreacting, and that his partner had died 2 weeks previously from a COVID blood clot, and that I was doing the right thing. So they didn't even have enough beds to get me into the emergency room. I sat in a wheelchair out in the hallway, and they did some blood work, and they said the doctors in an ER aren't there to be your family doctor and see how you're doing and how your family is and how you feeling today. They are like, what is going to keep you alive? If you're not dying, I got to move on. And so they said, we're going to take your blood. And if we notice any clotting issues going on in your blood work, then we will do a Doppler scan, which is what they use when they go up and down the inside of your leg to check your veins for blood clots. And the next thing you know, 3 hours later, when they got my blood work back, being wheeled into a hospital room to get the Doppler scan, which even scared me even more. But, I didn't have any blood clots at that time. And the doctor kind of came in and was like, if you do have a blood clot, it's really hard to detect. And they usually just happen and then you die instantly. And I'm like, thanks.
That's kind of good news, I guess.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah, so, that was my ER experience. And then I went back to my acupuncturist and I got treatments there. And literally like the next day, everything was working a lot better because of the way Chinese medicine looks at the human body. He was able to figure out the elements that weren't working in me and do some work on me and fix it. So I still get the headaches now, but it's very, like I said, I tried to go give plasma, and the first time I went, because I'd been to the emergency room, they wouldn't take me. And then the second time I went, I had a headache, but I told them it was like on the 17th of September. Of August, I think it was. And they said that I had to wait until the 1st of September in order to give plasma because I was still having symptoms. So, I mean, like I said, I've tried to go donate plasma, but I keep getting turned away. And it's like, they don't even want my antibodies. What's wrong with me?
No, but I mean, you still have some residual symptoms, but overall, it's essentially gone from what you're saying.
Yeah, and I could tell even when the fever broke and it just felt like it was gone. And even though I was having little symptoms, I could feel it, like I said, leave my body like a demon. Like every day I woke up and I just didn't feel right. And then one day I woke up and I was like, oh, this feels different than not all right. So it feels like it's gone now. And sure enough, I took my temperature and that was the first day in 35 days that it was 98.7.
That's great. That is great. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're going to recover more and more as the rest of the year kind of passes through. You know what I mean?
Well, I was laid up for 35 days in a bed. So just getting your stamina back for anybody that's been laid up that long, it takes recovery time, whether I had COVID or not. It's just your body is not used to moving as much.
Yeah, your muscles are atrophy, right? They're like stuck.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm sure that everybody listening is happy to hear that, for sure. Now, I want to go back to before even Dragon Ball, because your background is in theater. How did you get into the performing arts? Like, obviously, before even voice acting, like, what was kind of what did you want to be when you grew up, is what I'm saying, and how did you get into that? That's what I'm curious about.
Sure. I wanted to be a singer ever since I was little. My first time performing, so to speak, I was 5 years old, and I walked into a dress shop in Southern California in San Diego, and this woman walked up to me and she was like, "You're perfect. Oh my goodness, you've got to try this dress on." And I'm at this, stranger danger age, right? And I'm like, "Oh, it's okay, no thanks," And then my mom walked in and was like, "Oh yeah, you should totally go try that dress on." And I was hired to be a runway model in these big Southern bridal runway shows. So like PM Magazine, which was like every weekend, was like a weekend soap talk show kind of deal. And I was literally walking down the aisle with, huge famous runway models like Cindy Crawford and, that caliber of runway model. And that was my first, and I was really just doing it to get Barbie money. I mean, I was 5. I didn't understand. Right. And then I got the bug. Really funny. I loved singing. I always wanted to be a singer, and but I had a really crazy voice because I had adenoids, and I couldn't even breathe through my nose. So I'd be sitting at dinner with my brother and he's like, why are you chewing with your mouth open? I'm like, because what am I supposed to do? Chew with my mouth closed and breathe through my what? What am I supposed to breathe through? And he didn't like nobody knew that I couldn't smell and then I'd never been able to breathe through my nose before.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
So I got my adenoids removed. And when my adenoids were removed, I had this very lovely singing voice that no one had ever heard before. And so I had already written some songs, I had a keyboard and I would write my own little crazy little kid, preteen songs or whatever. And then in the 5th grade, I was asked to audition for All City Choir. And my mom was not really into it. She was like, you're a cheerleader, you're doing all this other stuff. This is one more rehearsal or something I'm going to have to take you to. So I'm not going to take you. And the choir teacher called her back and said she was one of 3 chosen out of all of the kids in the 5th grade to go try out for the All City Choir.
Tremendous.
I've rescheduled her audition. She will be there tomorrow by noon. And my mom was like, oh, okay. And sure enough, I made it. And then, I got the lead in the 5th grade play. And, from there on, it was just, I just enjoyed it. And it was something I did well. At least I thought I did well because I kept getting cast in things. And even in my senior year, like I was on the dance team and on the drill team and was on the debate team and, did all that stuff. And I had so many rehearsals or practices for other things after school that my senior year, the theater teacher moved all of the rehearsal schedule around my actual schedule. And I got the lead in every show that year. So that happening out of high school, I wanted to study in college. And my mother said, absolutely not. You're not going to go study movie starism. If you want to go be the next Jane Pauley, go for journalism, something that you can actually make money doing. And I went to Stephen F. Austin for like 2 years. I studied theater. I didn't take any other classes. I took all theater, all dance, and all voice classes. And then I broke my leg. Yeah, I didn't take any of my basics. I didn't take that one English class and then the one psychology class. And then, and so then I got into a car accident, nothing big, but I ended up coming home and I really always wanted to go to the University of North Texas. I didn't want to go to Stephen F. Austin, and my parents were kind of like, well, if we're going to pay to send you away to school, we're not going to pay to send you 45 minutes away. You've got to go away to school.
Right.
So when I came home, I ended up getting a scholarship in acting at the University of North Texas. And while I was there, they have like mentors, like the older kids mentor the younger kids. And my mentor also was a performance major, but she ran the makeup department. And my background also, my mother was a folk artist. I've been a painter all my life. My mom is, she made China dolls. She did stained glass. She just an amazing artist, oil paint. She could do it all. And I guess I took that knowledge of paint and put it onto a 3-dimensional canvas and apparently could just have the eye. Like you have to see makeup in order to be able to create illusions. You've got to be able to really understand the faces and shapes and
right.
Highlight and shadow and all those things. So I could see that, and so I very quickly excelled in that, and I ended up becoming the head of the makeup department as an undergrad, and actually taught classes as an undergrad and created an apprenticeship internship program so that I could help other aspiring artists and give them the chance to design and run a crew and all the things that they needed to do it professionally. And then I honestly had every intention of going out to LA. I was skinny and cute, had the energy, and I'd given up the lease on my apartment when I ran into Chris Sabat, and he asked me to audition, or told me that I could audition, and they'd already had the open cattle call, and these were the callbacks. So he was like, I've heard you sing, I've seen you perform, you should come audition, there's some great roles still available. And then 2 weeks later he called and said, is Tiffany Bulma VOLLMER there? And I was like, what's that? He's like, that's your new character on Dragon Ball Z. And I was like, yay. I still had no idea what that meant.
I'm gonna ask you about that, but I have a quick question about the makeup. When you say you were doing makeup, or we're talking about like glamorous style makeup, or we're talking about like you were also doing stuff like zombies and like
Oh, all of it. Yeah.
all of it.
So
Okay.
yeah. So my first, I think my first makeup job that I worked was University of North Texas has an incredible music school and opera department, and we did Deflator Mouse, and I had so it was like really heavy character makeup, and I just loved it so much. I just loved the blending and the hard lines versus the soft lines, and really
Right.
creating character through makeup. And but it was mostly opera theater. I worked for the film and television department. Anybody that got married, there I was.
You know your
And
initials are TV.
yeah, I do, and yeah.
I just noticed that. I'm sorry, it's humorous to me.
Well, no, because then my middle name is Michelle, and so when MTV came out, I was like, I want my Michelle Tiffany Vollmer
Flip the
instead of
names around.
MTV.
Right.
And yeah,
Right.
but
So you did everything. Okay. Now, quick trivia note for those out there who might not know this. This is a trivia note. Funimation, everybody knows this part. They took the dub in-house. Ocean Studios did the first 2 seasons. Then they started to do Dragon Ball Z Season 3, and that's when you came in. But prior to that, the first in-house Funimation dub of Dragon Ball was actually Sleeping Princess and Devil's Castle. And in that movie, Leslie Alexander voiced Bulma right before you. I'm talking about like months, maybe even weeks before you had come in. What happened to Leslie Alexander? Do you even know? Like, to this day, it's like a mystery to me.
this is the first I'm ever hearing of that story.
It's true. Like, right before you, she was Bulma, and then you became Bulma. So I guess maybe, I mean, it could have just been a personal thing. I was just wondering if you had ever met this person or if she had mentored you, but I'm guessing not even that. I'm
I am the
guessing.
only Bulma I have ever met.
Okay, so they never. Okay, so I'm guessing what happened, because I've heard this from other actors, is you came in to voice this character of Bulma. Did they give you a bunch of tapes of like the ocean dub Bulma, or did they just give you like a picture of the character and say, this is like a rundown of who she is, and like, how did you even get to find out about this character? Or what did you even
Um,
know?
well, it's such a great story. So I knew Chris Sabat back in college. We had an evening out with some friends and ended up going back to his apartment, and he was had a girlfriend and I had a boyfriend, and so our friends were getting, in quotations, air quotes, better acquainted. And so it was left us downstairs kind of uncomfortable, and I look over and I see he's got the entire vinyl collection of Olivia Newton-John. I mean, not just Grease and not
That's
just
great.
physical. It was the country album, like the whole. I mean, Chris Sabat has the most incredible vinyl collection anyway, but this was especially spoke to me. So we ended up singing. He was an opera major in college, and we ended up just singing and duetting and just having this heartthrob with Olivia Newton-John while our friends were upstairs getting acquainted.
That
And
is that's probably the best story I've ever heard on this entire interview series I've ever done. Already, it's the
I
best.
I have some real. It gets better though, especially
Oh,
with Chris.
I'm gonna shut up then.
So I don't see Chris very often after that. We run into each other at the bar every now and again. I was always very fond of him. And so then I'd given up. I was going to move to LA. I'd already gone out and interviewed all the makeup schools. I knew which one I was going to go to, and I was going to try to, get a job acting on the side while I was getting through makeup school. But still wanted to perform and was going there to perform, but needed you always got to have a backup, right? Uh, so I'd given up the lease on my apartment, and because I was on scholarship, I didn't take that math class they always tell you to take while you're a freshman because you've had math in high school. I
Right.
took it after I hadn't been in school for almost a decade, and I failed my math class. So I had to scramble and stay behind for one more math class, just one more semester, 5-hour math class. And I found out close to Christmas Eve, and I ran into Sabat at the bar that night, and he's wearing a pearl snap shirt, and he goes, well, this is crazy. He's like, what are you up to? And I said, well, I was going to move to LA, but I failed my math class, so I guess I'm stuck here for another semester. And he goes, well, that is really crazy, and I don't know why, but I happen to. And he opens his pearl snap shirt, and he pulls out a dubbed cassette tape of Xanadu.
Wow. Okay.
With do you know Xanadu with Olivia Newton-John?
I've never seen it, but I've heard of it.
Oh, shame on you! You've got to see it now. So anyway, it was one of the albums that we had sang that first night that we met, several years before. And he just by chance had a dubbed cassette tape in his Pearl Snap. I was like, this is crazy. He goes, oh, and by the way, I'm directing the show, and you should come audition. I'll get you here's the number. I'll get you an audition time. And so the audition day came up, and I didn't even really consider it. I had no idea what I was auditioning, how the audition. I didn't know what the audition was about. So I called Chris and I said, hey man, is there anything I can listen to or like research, or who am I reading for? Like, I'm usually really prepared for auditions. I don't feel like I am for this one. And he said, oh, well, good news. I have a video cassette tape with 7 of the different voices that you'll be reading for. The bad news is I'm in Fort Worth at the studio. But the good news is you're just going to have to break into my house and get the tape. And I was like, okay. So, and this is like before cell phones really. So I have to write down the instructions, of how to break into Chris Sabat's house. He's like, you're going to go to the front door. There's a window to the left. That's my office. It's usually unlocked. So just lift up the window and crawl through. In the top left hand of my desk drawer, there's a VHS tape. I love telling the stories at conventions too, because I can see some of the kids in the audience going, what's a VHS tape?
Oh, I know what it is.
VHS.
Yeah.
So I took it home and I watched it twice, and then me and my roommate, who also auditioned, he didn't get a part, but we drove out to Funimation and auditioned. And I went in, and Chris wasn't there. I read for Barry Watson, and I read for, Dende, Young Gohan, Young Goku, Chaozu, Frieza, Chi-Chi, and Dende and Bulma, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Something like that.
Right.
And when I got done, Barry Watson walks out. He shakes my hand and he says, oh my goodness, you did such a great job. I could see you in any of these roles. And thank you so much. You're a very talented actress. I remember him saying that. You're a very talented actress. And I thought, oh, he's just giving me the good old nice try, kiddo. Don't keep
letting you down easy, right?
Yeah, like don't give up on your dreams, kid. You're gonna make it one day, kind of deal.
Right.
And don't call us, we'll call you. But hey, good college try, right? And so I didn't think anything of it. And then of course I got the part. And when I went in, we were on the Namek series, and I just really I didn't know anything about my character, anything about the show. And I kind of didn't want to, because I wanted to be malleable enough for the director to, kind of do what he wanted to with me, and in a voiceover, so to speak, you know what I mean? But anyway, right. So I went in there, and, the planet is exploding, and all I'm doing is, like screaming and, running away from dragons and whatever else. The planet's exploding, and so I screamed, literally for pages at a time. And he, said to me, he was like, I'm Bulma is young, and she is, she's a genius, but she's also kind of a ditz, not really a ditz, but she's kind of naive in the same way, especially around boys and stuff. So think of Carol Burnett when she does the Tarzan.
That's actually I never thought about comparing Bulma to Carol Burnett.
Yeah. So my version of Bulma that I was directed to do was very waterfall, very
Valley Girl.
Yeah, kind of. Oh my good, just whiny and
right.
Always something to complain about. And then when she got serious, of course, it was different. But so that was my introduction to her, and it just got easier and more natural, the more that I did her. And then it even, it was weird because I played her from the age of 16 through the age of like 40 something.
Right. Even older, because GT. You were also her in GT.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to ask you about that, because as Bulma aged in the series, Did you change or alter your performance or your view on the character as she would become a mother and then
Oh yeah,
raise
absolutely.
Trunks? Okay, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
I really did. In fact, people often ask me what my favorite, oh, what's your favorite, saga or favorite Bulma scene or whatever. And I
Right.
always tell them that I love doing the history of Trunks because you got to see a much more grounded version. You get to see kind of all the sides of her. You
The
get to see her
widow
be,
Bulma.
yeah, all of that. You got to see all of these sensitive parts of her that, and more mature and more grounded. Um, so, John Bergmeyer was my director for that, and he really didn't direct me much. I just remember him directing that one movie, and I just loved working with him so much. Some directors were just like, "Come in, let's get the line. You know who Bulma is," and then other directors are, "Okay, well, let's try it again." And I'm like, "Okay, I've been playing her for 8 years, so if you're trying to get me to do it a different way, that's fine, but just tell me." I need you to give me direction. I don't need you to just tell me just to do the line again, kind of deal.
Well, it's interesting because when you had done Z and then you did GT and even like, the Trunk special, then you had to go back and redub seasons 1 and 2 after Funimation had done the in-house dub after Ocean. They stopped using the Ocean dub. And then also Dragon Ball, so you kind of had to revert your voice back to teenage Bulma because this
I
is a
did.
very important character here. She is, I don't think people understand, Bulma is the second character ever introduced in the series.
Right.
Goku was first. She created the Dragon Radar, created the time machine. I mean, she literally has created the plot of this entire series. So, in many ways, you are voicing the second most important character in the entire show. And I think people forget that about Bulma because they think of Dragon Ball as being this action show, which it is, but she was there from the very beginning. She discovered Goku. She discovered the fish out of water character.
Yeah, she I have been uh I don't know what the word to use, entertained by the idea that there are fans out there that are conspiracy theorists that do believe that the entire series could have gone on without Bulma.
No,
And
that's
I have so
literally
many
impossible.
problems with that. I'm like, but she's the one that got the Dragon Balls together and made the wish. So
Well,
who else was even gonna do
she
that? And
literally invented the Dragon Radar.
yeah,
She literally, had Bulma not invented the time machine, Trunks would have never been able to go back in time and literally save the main timeline from Goku's heart virus as well as the androids. Like, that is such BS. This series cannot exist without Bulma. And I'm not telling you that because I'm talking to you, who was Bulma and in many ways still is Bulma, but because it's the truth. Even if you're watching the Japanese version, like, Bulma is, and even Toriyama himself talked about this, Bulma is like the second main character. The first episode of Dragon Ball in Japanese, it's called Bulma to Son Goku, Bulma and Son Goku. Bulma's name is the first name in the first episode. So what does that tell you? You know?
yeah,
And she's also the
yeah.
reason that Vegeta would eventually become good, which I wanted to ask you about that. Did you and Chris have chemistry as Vegeta and Bulma because you knew each other in real life? Or was it one of those things where, because if you're doing voice acting, you're kind of in the booth at separate times, so does that even matter when you're doing it?
I never ever got to react uh, opposite him.
Yeah, because that would have been great. Because, in Japan, the way they do it there is they don't have every actor in the booth with the three dots and or the three beeps. In Japan, they don't have individual actors. Everybody's in the booth at once. They have one or two mics and everyone's in the booth at once, which is such a weird and different way to do it. But, I mean, have you ever worked in an environment like that where you have like several actors in one room? Except for like when you were live, of course, like in front of people. But I mean, in the voice thing, is that just a Japanese thing?
No, I mean, well, yeah, and I don't know. Okay, so this is what I'm not kind of clear on. I think that I know the answer to this, but I'm not quite sure. I believe, like in America, when they do the voiceover, like for The Simpsons, let's say,
Right, the
the
pre-roll and
actors
post-roll.
the actors go in
Yeah.
and they do a table read, and the artists actually try to mimic a little bit of the shapes of the actors' voices, right?
Right.
And in anime, I'm not sure if this is the right fact, but I believe that they draw in the dialogue, and so their voice actors kind of do what we have to do too, where they have to match mouth
The
flaps, but
flaps.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, but it's not you know, their mouth sounds and the shape and the way of their language is very different from ours, so they don't have some of those consonants that we have right in the middle of a word, so they, you know, their voice remains open the entire time, which is
Right.
also why we had to rewrite scripts. And I did spend time in booths where I was literally, we were hammering out, you know, some new lines because there's just no way to make some of them fit.
Right. Yeah, and that led to. I mean, some of the stuff you had to do. Some of it led to just. I mean, because the script for Dragon Ball Z has historically been a bad one. I mean, that's just the truth. They had a lot of changes that were made. Barry Watson changed a lot of stuff from the Japanese. Some of it was unnecessary. I wanted to ask you about Barry Watson. Was he easy to work with? Because I've heard like different stories from different people about, you know, some say he was a taskmaster, some say he was a really nice guy. Like, what was your experience working with Barry Watson?
Oh, I thought he was great. I liked him. I liked him up until the point where I felt like the voice actors deserved more money.
I think every actor has said that to me at one point or another. You
But I
know?
sat down, I called them all into a meeting and kind of just said, we're not really being paid what we should. And we got a raise the next year. So,
Well, I'm sure they should thank you for that because the reality is, and I'm sure you know this now, maybe you didn't know at the time, but Dragon Ball Z was, at the time, the biggest cartoon out there on television. I mean, I think South Park was the only one that edged it out. This is in the late 90s, early 2000s. Dragon Ball Z was the biggest anime. I mean, it had superseded Pokemon at one point and Sailor Moon. It was the biggest show. And I hear these crazy stories about how Chris Sabat made 20 grand a year. And I'm just sitting there like, dude,
yeah,
you're working on the biggest show ever. Like this show is this show literally made Funimation. Before Dragon Ball Z, Funimation had the Morris Brothers and Chuck E. Cheese and all this garbage that nobody gave a crap about. Nobody cared. And
I
then
actually worked on the Chuck E. Cheese Galaxy 5000 movie.
that is crazy. I thought you had come after. I mean, with all due respect, I'm not trying to disrespect your work. I'm just saying that it just people weren't buying that. You know what I mean? Like Dragon Ball Z is what hit. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I think it was around the same time maybe I had auditioned, and but yeah, I did I was the head makeup artist for, or maybe it was after we started recording. I don't remember exactly when it was. But anyway, I was the makeup artist, the key makeup artist on Galaxy Chuck E. Cheese Galaxy 5000.
That is great. So you were getting two different paychecks, I guess, for your work.
Mhm.
Now, what do you find most inspirational about the Bulma character? Obviously, I said, you know, we said it before. She invented all these crazy things, Dragon Radar, other things, two other gadgets. Her dad invented capsules, and her family's rich and everything. But I mean, is it kind of her like as a mother, or her as being like this woman who took this crazy villain Vegeta, and really Vegeta turned good because of Bulma, Trunks, and Goku. Those are the three characters that kind of had the most impact on his life. I wanted to ask you what you found most inspirational, her bravery, like what inspired you about the character, if there was anything.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty much what I was saying earlier about I loved that she was a strong, independent woman, but that she was very in touch with her sexuality, even as naive or shy as it was. And then later on, you see her go from a girl to a woman when she is using that sexuality in order to pursue Vegeta. So I think you know, just the rocket science brain smarts, literally, and
Right.
the naive feminine side of her, the way that they just work together, I think makes for a pretty incredible character,
I
and
mean,
that's what inspires me.
this woman reprogrammed the Namekian spaceship, alien technology, and was able to reprogram it so that it could be translated into a language she could read. I mean, it's all kinds of just insane things with this character. Just Crazy story. So, I wanted to ask you, you know, as you were performing this character, did you, because you were saying at first you had no idea what was going on, but as you started to kind of do this, you know, a few months, then a few years, did you kind of look ahead to see what was coming in the future for the character? And also, back then, because I know that now, Funimation is very different with the way they dub things than they were back then. Did you have access to any of the Japanese audio? Did you get to hear Hiromi Studios' version and kind of pattern yourself after it? Like, or was it was on the fly? It was all directing, right?
Yeah, it was all directing, and the only time we ever used the Japanese voices was when we did the video games, and we needed that for the timing of the line. We had to get in and out like really quickly, so we had to listen to their timing, and then do it in our voice, but with the same timing.
Right. No,
and also what you were saying earlier about have I ever been in a room with another voice actor acting out a scene?
Right.
Absolutely. Me and me and Cynthia had gotten in the booth and had screaming matches at each other, and it was super fun. And then all the Wallace scenes, so like all the crowd scenes, we're all standing in a booth together, like, you know, just making mouth noises and crowd sounds.
Oh, so you were voicing like extra roles, like extras, basically.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's great. And but I'm okay. I forgot to actually follow up that question, which was, you know, you didn't like. Okay, let's say let's say they told you, okay, we're gonna do a new story arc. They didn't tell you what was gonna happen with the character at all. No.
Oh no, I had no idea.
That's crazy. So it's like you're living her life.
Well, yeah, but you know, when we were doing, you know, of course, because I hadn't really researched it, I was like, okay, they want my voice, so I'm just going to go in there and give them what they want. And they said it was cold read, so I was down with that. But because the planet was exploding, I was like, they're like, oh, we'll call you back. And then I didn't hear from them for like 2 weeks. So you know, Cheers was kind of fresh on everybody's mind back then. It was like the one where Joey gets written out of Days of Our Lives, you know, and I'm like, maybe my character died, you know, like I'm like, oh, that was a great voice acting career. I just thought it was over, you know, and then it wasn't until, and then they just kept calling me back, and I just kept going in and doing these little scenes. And then we started doing Dragon Ball, and that's when I really knew, because I'm much more of an anime fan, but I was not an anime fan trying to become an anime voice actor. I was an actress that got a job on an anime show.
Right. Nowadays it's backwards. Now you got fans who listen to you who want to get into the business.
Yeah. And that's great. I wish everybody the best of luck. But yeah, so when I finally, you know, went back and started doing Dragon Ball, I was like, oh shit, man, I'm Ron Burgundy. I'm kind of a big deal, you know, like I didn't realize I was such a big deal until the Dragon Ball series. And then I was like, okay, this is cool.
From the very beginning. I mean, in theory, if the main character is Goku and Bulma's secondary main character, you voiced the character of Bulma more than either Sean Schemmel nor Nadolny voiced Goku. Yeah, because she did Goku until and that, so you were there from start to finish, and to me that's a tremendous body of work. Now,
well, yeah, I mean, because even, you know, like even Chi-Chi had a different voice actor as a child, you know, it wasn't young Chi-Chi. So yeah, I was basically the longest running character on the show as the voice actor. Yeah.
No, you were, because in the dub they changed narrators, because in the Japanese version, Nozawa voiced Goku, Hiromi Studio voiced Bulma, and Joji Yanami voiced the narrator, and they stuck around throughout everything from Dragon Ball Z, GT, all that stuff. But in dub, because it was, you know, different studios, and, you know, you have recastings, and there's like 3 different narrators, it was, you are the constant, and that's one thing that I don't think people really always remember, that you were always the constant. Now, I wanted to ask you about your departure from Dragon Ball. You had moved to New Orleans, and was it one of those things where, and I don't know the whole story, I'm just guessing, when you moved to New Orleans, was it a situation where, because you were no longer in Dallas-Fort Worth, you could not voice the character for Kai and for future projects?
So I did it, I auditioned for Case Closed a million times. I mean, like for the lead, like they called me back like 3 times for the lead for that. And I did do a voice. I did a recurring character, Betsy, for like 2 episodes or something. But there were a bunch of us that were replaced. And I was one of the people that was replaced. And I was replaced by Monica Rial, who on her own right, has this really great, amazing anime career. And so I don't know how that went down. I don't know where that came from, and I'm not mad about it. I'm sure I was hurt at the time, but I can understand that if you're going to do a version of a show that is extremely different from the original version, to maybe get somebody to bring their fans over to see the success of the new version. I don't know if that's what happened, but when Chris and I were kind of emailing about it, I was like, dude, I thought I would. He didn't bother to call me. I kind of found out in a way that was more upsetting than him calling me to tell me. And I think he was just nervous about it, but I don't know. But when we chatted, he was like, you will always be the original Bulma, and she knows you were there before her, and she has been voice acting a lot longer than both you and I combined, or whatever, so he was very considerate, and, we've chatted about it, and I'm cool with, what happened. And, that also gave me the opportunity to be free to move about the country, because, I was going to move to LA. I mean, I could have knows where I could have been if I would have moved to LA, but I stuck around for this voice acting job because I was this character, and, I loved the character and I loved the work. I didn't love the paycheck. We all have other part-time jobs. I ran a Gap store for half of that. I also started my own theater company. And
Cynthia does real estate. I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's not a full-time job. A lot of people think that once they make it on a big show, that's no, you're always waiting for the next gig. It's like anything. So
unless you work for like Disney, right? That's the only way, right? If you have like a big gig, correct?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, they hire celebrities, whereas before it used to just be voice actors. So even that opportunity isn't what it used to be. But I believe I'm just a very spiritual person. I believe that I had my time on that show, and then it was time for me to go do something else. And if I wouldn't have moved to New Orleans, I wouldn't have met my husband and had my daughter and had all the amazing experiences of living in this incredible city for 8 years.
The food is unbelievable. Nobody knows till you go. I've been to New Orleans twice in my life, and I swear to you, it's like, oh, try alligator. No. Oh my God, this is so good. Try a crawfish po' boy. No, I don't think I'd like that. Oh my, it's like crack. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's so good. I mean,
oh yeah, it's really good.
Every time I go to New Orleans, I end up gaining like 5-10 pounds every time. It's just so good. Well, so I mean, there's that.
So the other really beautiful thing about New Orleans is because of the city that it is, it attracts hundreds of like-minded people, all artists and musicians and vagabonds and gypsies and costumers and I lived in an art studio. It was a 650 square foot space, and my bed was on a 8-foot platform. So I pretty much lived in a tree house. If anybody wanted to get in bed with me, they had to climb an 8-foot ladder. So that was.
I was gonna say maybe it was worth it, but I don't want to say that right now. I'm not cutting that out, by the way.
Worth it.
I'm not cutting that out right now. So
don't even. I
am not editing that.
Yeah, go for it.
Anyways, continue.
So all of those things were so appealing, and then when the Broly movie, or was the one right before Broly?
Resurrection F. Are you talking about the new movies or the ones from your era?
No, I mean, so even after Kai, they had called me in New Orleans.
Battle of Gods, because they brought back Meredith for that, who had moved. Yeah.
they did ask me to be in it. And they said, how would you feel if we were thinking about bringing the original recipe, is what they
Right.
called me.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm no fried chicken. Come on. But anyway, I was like, okay, yeah. I said, would you guys be able to help me financially get back to Dallas? And then I never heard from them again.
What a surprise.
Yeah.
And this was
Yeah.
was
And I
this
mean,
bef-
I wasn't even like trying to say, you know, you have to pay for my trip back or I won't do it. I was just asking if they would consider, if they were going to do that, if they were going to fly me back in, or if I had to pay for it myself. I didn't even get an answer. I mean, I would have gone, okay, I'll figure it out, but yeah, no, it was just like, oh, she wants us to pay for her to come back. Never mind. That's what it felt like anyway.
but couldn't they have just? I mean, I know that it was Battle of Gods was recorded in 2014. The dub, that is, not the sub. Sub was in 2013. Couldn't they have just? Even back then, you had. I mean, maybe you didn't have a home studio, but they could have had, some remote access stuff, right? Or did they want to get everybody back on board because it was a movie? Because that was a big movie when it came out.
Yeah, it was huge. I don't know what the.
Because nowadays, you could voice whatever you want to from home. In fact, I know that Funimation themselves are doing anime now with actors being at home because of COVID, even before COVID. So it's just a lot easier. So why did you choose New Orleans? I never got to ask you that question.
One of my closest high school friends lived there and had a room for me and was like, hey, you should just, move out here. I'd gone through a really bad breakup. And I just needed to get out of town for a while, and that just was an option for me. And I was like, well, why not? And I'd been there, I'd visited,
mm-hmm.
and I loved it. So, yeah.
Is that when you started? Is that when you started to work on the live action stuff? Because I know you did some live action films in like the late 2000s. Would that have been in New Orleans, or that was before you came back to Dallas? So that would have been in the 2000s, right? Like, how did that whole thing kind of kick off for you? Like the post Bulma live action career,
Well, I did a couple of live action things that were kind of almost even on accident. I've always worked production. I'm a producer. I write, direct. I first AD. I do makeup. I do wardrobe, art direct. I've done everything. Because Dallas is a right to work state. So if you don't have enough skill, you just won't work. So you have to have, several different skills to get work around here. And but I was in, I was in a movie called Chow, and I was in the American Heart Association. It was an instructional video or whatever. And but I'm a live performer. The funny thing was, anytime I toured with Sonny for a really long time, and for 3 years. And he always said, if you can't find Tiffany Vollmer, find the nearest stage, and that's where she is. And he'll tell you the story, like literally every time he couldn't find me, I was on a stage with a mic in my hand, singing, performing, doing all that. So in New Orleans, I used to perform at a bar called Checkpoint Charlie, and I would freestyle with some of the guys. I did some rap things and some singing things and some jazz things. And the bartender there at the time was like, well, I'm not going to serve you a drink until you get up on stage and sing me something. I was like, okay. So
that's great.
Yeah, and then I'd written some songs that are kind of sleazy lounge songs, like Exit Only Girls, a girl who done taken in the butt, and Crevices is about how you never lick my crevices anymore. So
goodness.
Yeah.
Where can we hear those songs?
They are not recorded for public.
Yeah. What a letdown.
Unless somebody did it without me knowing. But yeah, so I did some cabaret kind of stuff. I'd like to do cabaret again and be an MC and MC a cabaret show and have all different types of performers and the girls that take their clothes off. Sorry, I've got COVID brain.
Yeah, the cabaret. I'm not going to call them strippers.
No, they're not strippers. They're
like the burlesque house, like the classy.
Yeah. I would want burlesque. I would want musicians. I would want comedians. I want to do a cabaret and then do my songs in between.
Like a big
That
sort of performance stage show type of thing, like just a big entertainment show.
Yes, yes, yes. I think those are really fun, and I'm good at putting things together. So it would combine all of my talents, I think, to put on a cabaret show.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
in New Orleans, I pretty much started producing films, and I wrote and directed a couple of commercials, and I produced a music video, and I became the personal stylist for the Blues Babe, Olga Munding, in New Orleans, and produced one of her music videos. And one of the great things about New Orleans, like I said, about the artists and everything, but the parading and the costuming is so incredible. And after several years being there, I became the royal makeup artist for the Mom's Ball, um, King and Queen's Court. And actually, one year was invited to be on the Queen's Court. And this crew was started, back in the 60s, and these people are now in their 60s, and they partied like they did in their 20s. It's the most incredible group of people. And these balls are like, um, they're not, they don't do parading like floats and things. They just have this one big masquerade costume ball that had celebrities that would come out because they wouldn't get recognized, like Angelina and Brad used to go to the Mom's Ball, and it would have a theme, and everybody would costume according to the theme. Anyway, I mean, it was just such a magical place. Uh,
Yeah.
and and my husband, it's a very small town. It's not as big as Dallas, and everybody knows everybody. If you're a creative person, then it's easy to be very well connected there, but it's very difficult to make money. As strange as that is, it's not a place where uh, people, like, a lot of the artists are starving artists. They're good artists. There's nothing wrong, the musicians and whatnot. It's just hard to make money there. And after I had my daughter, I had to make money. I was told I could never have kids. I turned 41. I got pregnant.
That's beautiful. That's a
So
beautiful story. For anybody out there who might be worried about that, you never know.
yeah, they really did, and I kind of changed my story, my narrative in life. Saying, "Oh, I'll be the crazy aunt. Oh, we're not having kids." And then I met my husband, and 11 months in, we got pregnant, and it was like a sign from God, and we were in love, and we were going to get married anyway, and it was just the one thing that solidified that we were meant to be together.
Yeah.
So
At the end of the day, that wound up being a positive for you, no matter what. But you did end up going back to Dallas to work for Media Tech Institute as a teacher, basically.
actually, as the author of the acting for media program that I wrote and got accredited for an associate degree, and also a master makeup artistry program, and I am still kind
Even
of
better.
currently the chair of both of those departments. So I was responsible for not only coming up with the curriculum, but also lesson plans. And when I was there before COVID hit, I also created a student organization called Mesh, helped create. There were several of us that were involved. And it was a kind of like the social, also philanthropic student organization on campus. And we had recording art students and film students and mobile app students. And they all always worked in their own departments, but they never came together and worked together as a team. So Mesh was to bring all of these students from the different departments together and have them do projects. And at the very end of each semester, we would do a live talent show in front of people, and we'd have celebrity judges come out and talk to the kids. But I would do performance coaching with the kids because a lot of recording artists only are in their heads. They're recording artists. They don't know how to use the stage. They don't know how to have stage presence. They don't know where to look. They don't know what to do with their hands. So I was doing all of that, and then COVID. So,
You gotta wait till next year to pick it back up again.
yeah, it's really, we just have to see what goes on with, the two programs that I wrote are very interactive. You know, you're touching people's faces. You have to work on models and other people. And for the acting, it's like you can only do so much Zoom rehearsal. You know, at some
Right.
point, you've got to be able to stand in front of somebody and interact with them. So we'll see. I every day I wonder if they're going to call me back.
Right. I mean, you're one of many. Now, I'm calling BS on this, but I'm going to ask you directly. It says on your wiki page, which I pulled up here because I wanted to make sure. I doubt this is true, but I wanted to ask you. It says that in 2009 you retired from voice acting, but that's not exactly what you told me. That, you know, I knew that
I don't
was.
know who wrote that. I have no idea.
I had a feeling.
Yeah, I have no idea who wrote that.
Because you're in Dallas now. If at some point you get a call to do something, would you consider coming back, even if it's a small role?
Oh, sure. No. In fact, you know, when I saw Chris Sabat at CommandCon, he was like, you know, let me make some phone calls. I'll make sure you get back on the audition list. The thing is, I was just so busy opening my programs. And I still do voiceover work. I just don't work at Funimation doing anime. Like,
Right.
I was a voice on WWZ, which is a world broadcast radio station in New Orleans, and I did a lot of the underwriting spots for that. I just did a PSA for the Promise House here in Dallas. I also did a commercial for the Plano Comedy Festival. I mean, I still do work. I was the voice of Kroger for many years. This Kroger's located right in your neighborhood. You know, like that kind
is
of corporate
amazing.
stuff.
Can you imagine how many people probably heard you doing the Kroger voice and did not put two and two together that you were Bulma? Like, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Because it's a different voice. I mean, you know, when you're doing Bulma, you're doing the Valley Girl thing. That
Whoa!
Kroger.
Yeah.
Yes. Now you're just doing like your regular kind of voiceover attention Kroger shopper's voice. But I wonder if they could. I doubt they could tell. I doubt they could. I will ask you this.
Different voice. I hold my entire face very differently when I do lines like that.
I did want to ask you about that. I've had a lot of people on this series, and a lot of actors tell me the same thing, and I'm assuming you're going to be able to confirm this. They always tell me, they say, if you want to be a great voice actor, you have to be a great actor first. And is it really important then to learn the performance art of acting, not just how to do funny voices behind a microphone?
Absolutely. I mean, we act with our entire bodies when we're in there, believe it or not. There are certain sounds that don't come natural, and you can't cry pretty in anime. You know what I mean? There's no crying pretty in anime. You got to be able to, you know, wrinkle up your face and get the sounds out. But it is a very physical thing. Your body is part of that organ. Everything's connected.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And your facial expressions is like you have to. I was told you have to like hype yourself up sometimes, like mentally, like, you know, like sort of do like exercises, not literally, but you know, am I making sense at all when I say that?
I always warm up.
Warm up.
I warm up like a baseball player would before a baseball game. I do scales. I lubricate my voice. I, you know, get my face warmed up, my eyebrows, my whole, you know, I do some stretching and stuff because you're standing in there for, you know, several hours on end. And I prefer to stand. I don't know how voice actors can use their diaphragm and sit while they're doing lines unless they're doing a lazy character.
Right. You got to get into it. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And your social media, your Twitter is Bulma Vollmer. That's BULMA VOLLMER. That's 2 L's in Vollmer. Is there anything you want to close out with? Anything you want to promote, or anything you want to say to people who might be listening to this who grew up with your voice, which I know is many people, because my audience is essentially the Toonami generation and the pre-Toonami generation. I have a few people who kind of caught on with Kai, but not as many as like the, you know, I would say maybe mid-20s to even early 40s. That's mostly my demographic. So they're going to know your voice for sure. Anything you want to say before we get out of here? Any final thoughts on anything?
would say that, if you are interested in voice acting, to pursue it. There's lots of information online about it. But, don't get your hopes up, and know that you can be a working actor. You may not ever be famous. And I got lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. And now what I do is I'm on the board of directors for Women in Film Dallas. And our slogan is to empower, mentor, and promote. And if you have organizations like that in your city, making connections and working with other people that have the same like minds as you is very, very helpful. And I'm so grateful for my experiences that now I try to give back and give advice and help other people on their path.
Yeah, and you're kind of a mentor, because actually one more thing, I had to talk about this real quick. You did some lines from Dragon Ball Super for one of your like students, right? What was I gotta talk about that, because you mentioned before we started recording, and I promised I'd bring it back up again. So there are some Tiffany Vollmer, because the dub collector's gonna go nuts when they hear this. It's not public, and it's probably never gonna be, but you did voice Bulma one more time for Super for like a student film.
Well, so the students at Media Tech, it's a recording arts school and a digital film school, and the recording students have to scrub a section of a cartoon, and they have to find staff around the building or other students to come and voice the roles. I just started at Media Tech. Nobody kind of knew who I was or what I was doing there, and the president of Media Tech said, this kid was doing Super, and she said, "Oh, well, who's doing the voice of Bulma?" And he said, "I don't know yet. I was going to ask the secretary." And she was like, "Well, how about if you got the real, actual, original Bulma to do that line for you?"
Amazing.
Yeah, and so I did. I went in the booth, and this kid who was just fanboying out real hard was like, "I can't believe I'm directing Bulma in Dragon Ball Super." And so, it was super fun because, I weaseled my way into Super anyway, kind of deal. But
yes,
I've done it for several students. I do like to, and they get a kick out of the fact that they get to direct me for a minute, and I help them too. I'm like, "Do you want me to give that to you a different way, or, let me do it 3 different times, and you can pick which one you like the best." I try to teach them what it's like to work with a real professional voice actor, so they won't be nervous once they get their opportunity to actually get a job doing that.
And I do love the fact that like Sonny Strait and Chris Rager, they have their little schools, so I always appreciate when the experienced talent gives back to the next generation. That's always a very warm thing. So we will be keeping our eyes open on your career, and anything else that comes down the pipeline, let me know, and I'll let the fandom know. And if whenever the inevitable day comes that Dragon Ball would return, if maybe they bring you in for a cameo or something, if that would ever happen, I would just love it, because they've done things like that before. I mean, Brian Drummond came back to voice copy Vegeta, and that was a little Easter egg for the fans, and it's always appreciated.
Well, I mean, if you guys write people, ask for it. Even if I come in as a different character for a minute, that'd be super great. Yeah.
There are tons of new characters now, and many opportunities. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today, and I'm really happy you're doing better. No.
Thank you, everyone. Love to you all.
Yes, and love to you as well. And thanks everybody for listening. We will catch you next time. Have a great day.